Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We're out at the little greenhouse, and today I wanted to talk about all of our end of season cleanup. You can see all these plants that didn't sell. We've got a ton of market plants over here that are still up for sale, but we've got lots and lots of empty pots, dirty pots, all types of stuff going on, stuff that's dying from frost. So we've had a few frosts here, so this is the end of the season here, and we are getting everything prepared. Got all these beautiful stevia flowers coming up, blocking the path to the greenhouse. Now, the basis of today's video is prepping a little greenhouse for winter, and we've got a lot of mess going on in here, and this has been just strictly for propagation. This bed just got uncovered. We basically just let our chickens run all of this soil. We've got lots of sprouts coming up where they haven't torn it up too much, but we've got some nice, good, rich soil. Lots and lots of worm castings were in there, and the chickens basically pulverized this for us. We had added a little bit of our old soil before we had covered this bed. So this greenhouse bed was resting all summer. This bed has been resting all summer also. And when I go to look under here, it's basically nothing but worm castings underneath all of this. And it is really, really good quality soil here. We didn't start with the best of soils, so it's full of nutrients for all of these plants that we're going to grow in here. And as you can see, I've got stuff everywhere. I've still got my aquaponics set up. I've got to get that taken down so we don't have a freeze up on our fish. We've got some guppies in there, or mosquito fish, that kept the mosquito larvae down all summer long. We don't really have any issues with mosquitoes. With our little bitty lemon balm, I pruned back because it got to be too big at the door there, and we've had some citronella growing all summer. So we've had no mosquito issues in here, even though we've got tons of standing water all the time. So I didn't come out here to talk about mosquitoes. I did want to show some roots here. We've got these elderberries that have been sitting in our aquaponics. Got some roots poking through on that. Little rosemary that's been in there a couple days. You can see a little root bud there. Got a nice pepper plant that we got to root off of a cutting there, and it's been in there for, I don't know, a couple weeks now, so it's definitely got some decent root system. I was going to overwinter that pepper there. So that brings me to another topic here. We like to bring some of our perennials, biennials, and annuals inside for the winter time so we can either propagate or use them as an herb or some type of medicine. And obviously for food. So we like to bring a mother plant of all of our herbs and everything that's not perennial that's growing outside, or stuff that we like to use in the winter time. So instead of recycling all of those plants or putting them right in the ground, you can bring a few of them inside and put them in a sunny window or throw them under some lights, and you will be able to have that plant throughout the winter time. The next topic I want to hit on is the earlier you plant and the more well-developed plants you have, the better chance they have at surviving winter in an unheated greenhouse or in a heated greenhouse. So we got an early start on a lot of our leeks. This is just a little bunch that we had here. We've got a whole nother flat growing up top here. We've got lots of rosemary for propagation and sale coming, but we've got a lot of onions down here also. These will be intercropped. Our leeks will be intercropped. We'll basically throw all of these leeks and plot them out in a bed such as this, and we will sow all of our lettuce seed or radish seed or whatever greens we're trying to grow amongst all of that. And those leeks are very cold hardy, and onions are very cold hardy, and they provide pest protection for the leafier greens that are basically eaten up by bugs or slugs in the greenhouse over the winter. You can get our poly basically covered up because this is like a little caterpillar tunnel on this bed, and then we've got this straight angle here all the way down, and this poly rolls all the way down and covers this entire bed. So I've got to get all of my plastic is all screwed up from the summertime and chickens getting in and out of here. I've been letting the chickens tear this bed up, and my little bantams have found a home. They've been sneaking in here at night and sleeping in this little flat. So before I get on any more tangents here, some more main points before you hit winter in your new greenhouse or in a greenhouse you've had for years. The first thing you want to do is clean. You want to spray all of the walls down and rinse everything off and get it nice and clean. You may not think that your greenhouse is dirty till you rinse off the top and rinse off the sides. And cleaning your greenhouse off definitely helps with the longevity of it. We've had this 5-year poly on this little greenhouse for 5 years now, and it is definitely holding up. It is pretty dirty. You can see some bugs stuck to it. So I've got to get in here and I've got to wash the walls down, and I want to make sure our ventilation is correct. We've got our little window. This is a little actuator that heats up at about 78 to 80 degrees, and it opens our window. Now I'll use this system up until it gets down to be below freezing, because I don't want to break or damage this little instrument here. But I have to have some type of ventilation, because I'm going to pull the shade cloth off this greenhouse, and I've got to be able to vent the heat somehow. So keeping that in mind, you definitely have to be able to oxygenate and refresh the air in your greenhouse throughout the winter. But when it's really cold out, down to the negatives, it's not that big of a concern. We have our greenhouse sealed up as tight as we can possibly get it, and insulated with a bunch of bubble wrap and whatever insulating factors we can find for free. So that being said, we have this little solar fan, and it circulates air through the little compost tube, either from the bottom or from the top, and we push the cold air up through the compost, and it naturally will draw out even when the fan's off. But we get some decent temperatures, blowing about 70 some degrees out of our compost heating throughout the entire winter as soon as the sun comes up. So we've got our added benefit of having airflow in the winter while also heating up the airspace. So airflow is definitely crucial in the winter time. It's not absolutely necessary, but it definitely helps with the health and growth of your plant. Now, the next steps in prepping your greenhouse for winter, once you've got your good soil in, once you've got all of the things arranged and everything cleaned out and the walls cleaned down, and you've got some good ventilation for your plants through the winter, the next thing you want to focus on is if you're going to heat your greenhouse and how. There's many ways to pay and heat your greenhouse, but it can get very expensive, and you could find that it's not worth putting electricity or gas into your greenhouse to heat it throughout the winter, when you're really not getting a whole lot of return throughout the winter, unless you're in a warmer zone where you can get by without any heat in an uninsulated greenhouse. We chose to heat our greenhouses with compost and solar power, which ended up really benefiting us in the long run, and the whole longevity of these systems is amazing. We've been running this system in this greenhouse for about 4 or 5 years, and that absolutely blows my mind that this little solar fan keeps spinning and our little solar pump keeps pumping. We've got nothing but good things to say about that solar powered system, and it was a very small, very minimalistic system, but it worked well for the purpose that I wanted to use it for. So no matter how you're going to heat your greenhouse, if you're going to heat it, you definitely want to insulate, and you want to save all of the energy that you're putting into it. It can be quite expensive to heat a greenhouse if it's not insulated, because you just keep losing all of your heat and exchanging it with the outside through the walls of your greenhouse. And if you have some type of airflow system, you're constantly brushing all your warm air up on the cold outside, and you're constantly exchanging heat and losing heat. So aside from using all of this bubble wrap around our greenhouse here, we like to put some straw bales on the northern side where we don't get any sun. We put a little bit of straw on the southern side, but we don't like to block any of our sun into the greenhouse, because we need all the solar activity and energy we can possibly get in here. So I think I've covered most of prepping for a winter greenhouse. We basically just got to do the work now. So I'm going to set the camera up, and I'm going to get all of these beds cleaned out, and I'm going to transplant out a few plants here. So we've got this bed cleaned out, and this is the way I was reusing old feed sacks here, because they're basically just like a thick plastic sheeting. Big old centipede there. But what I wanted to show is the fact that I found a couple of big old slugs there all over, but you can just see the amount of worm castings in all this soil. This is great soil to be working with, and we'll take all of our old soil from our pots and mix it up in here and basically break all this up, let the chickens come through and tear it all to pieces, and basically pulverize it just like this dirt over here. They are basically just like wood chippers for hard, chunky soil. Let's get all these pulled up here. I wonder what kind of critters we're gonna find in these things. Bunch of worms and stuff, a few sprouts here and there. Nothing too scary yet. All right, so this is what I wanted to see here. We've got some telltale mouse or vole signs here, and that little guy has been tucked up underneath. You can kind of see the depressions where he's been in and out of the greenhouse. So that tells me I need to set myself up a bucket trap. We've got a bunch of those we can make up, and I may make a video just making the bucket trap because it is a totally live trap. I just wanted to show all these dang worm castings. It is amazing how much work they do underneath there when you actually cover the soil and block out the sun. So I just took a simple little trowel here and I kind of broke up the top 2 inches of soil just so the chickens could really kind of dig in it and find some critters in here. Now I don't want to let the chickens run in here for more than a couple days, because basically after they pulverize all this, they'll just keep coming in here and digging everything up and eating all of the beneficial bugs at the same time as they're eating all the pets. So we've got this bed basically all chewed up and all the worm castings are pretty well broken apart. I'm going to transplant a few plants out in here, and then I will cover it with my little solar cover here, my little greenhouse plastic, so I can keep my chickens out of it and kind of force them over to the other bed so they won't have any open soil but this bed that I want them to work. We got a little row of leeks planted in the greenhouse. Doesn't look like a whole lot there, but we're going to fill in another row of leeks right next to it, about 1.5 inches away, and then we're going to sow a bunch of lettuces and some radishes around it. So we will fill that bed in, and I just wanted to show exactly how you use chickens in the greenhouse. This is how we are chicken proofing our little greenhouse here. We've got this whole little section you can see through there into the actual bed, and it is almost 100% sealed. The other end has airflow in it, so it is not 100% sealed, but the insulation and the greenhouse effect inside this definitely boosts up the growth in our plants. And I can basically just slip this right off, pop it off, roll it right up, and then we got access to our bed there. So we're basically ready for winter in this little bed here, and all we got to do is fix up some insulation on the back wall because it was falling down, and insulate the outside with some straw bales, and we should be able to grow in this little bed without heating it throughout the entire winter. But with the added effect of our compost heating in the floor, we should be able to grow some decent crops and get good growth as opposed to just keeping plants alive. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I wanted to run through and I wanted to kind of show how I have to get everything ready, and I've still got so much work to do. I just put all my focus into the large greenhouse and I haven't really done anything out here. So I wanted to show everybody what I was doing and the process of getting all of this prepped and ready for winter.